This week, I have a tentative plan. This one is a very strange experience. Let me pull up my notes because, like, I gave it 3.5 stars, okay? This felt like the beginning of a new story. Like, this almost felt like a standalone. I don't know how to explain it. I feel like you didn't actually need to know what happened in the first book. I mean, you did because it set it up, this entire thing, but, like, I'm not making a lot of sense right now. But to wrap up this week, let's talk about it. I have my computer here because I can't remember anything. Hi everybody, my name is Kelsey and we're about to get very, very nerdy with week 2 of the magical readathon. This week, I have a tentative plan. And my plan, I'm still letting the mood control my reading. I have my set TBR that I'm going off of. And the good thing, like I mentioned last week, is that everything on this list I want to read. So it's not, that's the problem, is I want to read everything at once. And so trying to pick and choose what I want to read at the moment is a little bit harder to do. But I still have a set TBR. I'm still going to let myself mood read off of it. But I'm going to go in with 2 priorities, I guess is the best way I can describe it. Is like, these are the books that, if not everything else fails, these are the 2 I want to finish this week. So they're probably the 2 that I'm going to focus on first. The first one is the one that I am bringing over from last week, and that is Blaze Wrath Games by Amparo Ortiz. This is not required for my careers, but it is part of the Dragon licensing, which is a separate licensing contracting thing that you can do, which is to read 2 books and watch 1 movie and or TV show that includes dragons. This one, as you can very clearly see on the cover, has dragons. I have read a little bit more. I'm on chapter 6, so about 58 pages. Still not very far into it, but I've read a little bit, and I'm excited. I'm hesitantly optimistic about this one because so far there's nothing really in here that is grabbing my attention as far as like the intrigue. So I've kind of been putting it off to read. Like, I started it last week and then didn't pick it up after reading the first chapter. But we're at the point in the plot where things are now happening or about to happen. So I think we're about to get a little more exciting. This book follows our main character, Lana, and it's set in a like contemporary style world, but has dragons and magic. And so her father's Puerto Rican and her mother is white. She lives in America, but because she lived in Puerto Rico for, I think it was 12 years, and because her father's Puerto Rican, she can put her name in for the Puerto Rican team for the Blaze Wrath Games, which is basically like, I interpret it as like the Olympics, but with dragons. And so all these different countries compete in the games. And the person that was the champion, or the chosen runner, I think is the title. I might have made that up. But the chosen person, champion, whatever, for Puerto Rico is no longer the chosen champion. So they're trying to find a new one. And she puts her name in and is trying to get to the trial for it. She ends up where I'm at right now. She ends up missing the trial, but that's because she went to this shop with her best friend who's a witch and her cousin, because it was her cousin's birthday, and she cannot stand her cousin. And honestly, fair. He was kind of a jerk. He was a jerk. And something happens and like a dragon shows up, and she ends up kind of not defeating the dragon, because she doesn't do that, but protects the dragon from this person who she thought was like this big bad. And I have some theories about him. But she's now been chosen as the champion runner, whatever it's called, for the Puerto Rican team. So I think because now she's been chosen, we're about to do the games. There's some hints that there is some stuff going on in the government, because there's like this guy who is a dragon, but I'm a little confused about the world. So I'm hoping that this will be explained a little bit more, because like there's a guy who she thought of really highly that like is her background screen. And I can't remember if he was the guy that was chosen for the Puerto Rican team, or if he just happened to be someone that like she liked in the past. So he has kind of been on the side of this guy who's known as the Sire, and he is actually a dragon, but like he's in human form. So like, I don't know if dragons can transform back and forth from human form to dragon form. I don't really know how that works, but like he's kind of a dragon and he's trying to get all these dragons. He says that like your government is trying to make you think one thing about dragons and it's not true. And I'm trying to free them and show you what's really true. So there's some stuff going on. I think when she enters the games, we're going to learn more about the world, and there's definitely going to be some corruption in the government. That is my theory. But like I said, now that she's officially in the games, things are starting to happen a little bit. So I'm hesitantly optimistic because like so far I have not really been interested. And I think the problem is that it is written. This is a great book for people who like love contemporary and want to get into the fantasy world, because it is written like a contemporary. There's like pop culture references, like they mentioned the Obamas and Skype in like the first 50 pages. And there's some stuff here that like definitely dates it for like present day. But then you also have like dragons that randomly show up, and like her best friend who, like I said, is a witch and uses a wand. So it's very bizarre in that sense, but also like it's written, it feels very, very young. Like this feels like it's written for middle grade, but our main character is 17. So there's a few things about the writing style I think that is taking me out of the story. So I'm hoping that the story itself can bump up the ante a little bit so I can be a little bit more interested in it. But those are my initial thoughts. We'll see how that goes. But that's one of the ones that I'm hoping to prioritize. And then the other one is Misrule by Heather Walter, which is the second book in the Malice duology. This one is in for something that's required, which is spells and incantations, which is to do like a random number generator, which I did, and you had to get a title that matched that number. I got 7. Misrule is 7 letters. So this one is, like I said, the second in a series. The first one, Malice, follows our main character. It's basically like a sapphic Beauty and the Beast retelling of sorts. I need to go online and see if someone has done like a spoilery synopsis of this, because I remember a lot from the first book, weirdly enough, but I just want to make sure there's nothing like small that I've forgotten. But this basically follows our main character, Alice, who is a dark grace, and in this world, people come to the graces for like potions and tinctures and spells to help them out, and because she's the only dark grace, they come to her for like curses and stuff. And so she ends up meeting this girl named Briar in the first book, who's the princess, and she has been cursed. Her entire family has been cursed, and she has to like have the kiss of true love by the age of like 18, I think it is. And so Alice is helping Briar out. It's a romance between the two of them. Shit hit the fan at the end of the first book, so I'm interested to see how this one goes. I'm actually very excited about it, but this is another one that I want to prioritize, mostly because the audiobooks for both of these books are at my library, and they're about to go away in probably about a week, and there's waitlist, so I can't just get it again. But either way, I think if I prioritize these two, which may not be the ones that are at like the top of my TBR at the moment, I think I'll be able to kind of dive in. Although the more I think about it, the more I am actually excited to start Misrule, because again, it's a duology. So once I'm done with this one, I'm done with the series. And I did remember really enjoying the first one. I just have put so much time between the first two that I'm worried now that I'm kind of in this YA world is a little, it's very iffy for me that maybe it won't work as well, but I might be projecting. So that's my plan. And then obviously we'll read some other stuff. I've got tons of things on my list of things to read before the end of the month. So you'll see a few things. There is another quest that has been announced, so when I get to that book, I'll talk about it. I think the third quest is going to be announced tomorrow. The third quest book is going to be announced tomorrow, so I can plan for that as well. I just have like so many plans, and I'm looking at the like my spreadsheet here and all the books that I've read that are like in green, and there's a lot of green. It's just not for, you know, my career section. It's all the other stuff. So we'll see. I'm rambling now, but these are my priorities for the week. So I hope to get through these. These are relatively chunkier books. I think these are, besides Beautiful Nightmares, which is the other dragon book on my list, these are the two chunkiest books. So if I can dive into these, then I can get a lot of the super, super chunky books out of the way. So that is the plan. Come along with me. I don't know what this week is going to entail. I think I've got some stuff like housekeeping type things that do not require a lot of brain power, so I can listen to these on audio while I do those. Lots of cleaning, lots of sorting, stuff like that. You know, spring cleaning time is happening. So I'll take you along for that. Maybe if it's interesting. I don't actually know like I said, like there's absolutely no plans for this week or so. So lots of reading. We'll see. I'll let you know. Come along with me. Hello, I'm here to update you on my reading because I have finished a book, and that is Blaze Wrath Games, which I have been reading over the course of the last couple of days, and I finally finished it. So this one is a very strange experience. Let me pull up my notes because, like, I gave it 3.5 stars, okay? Also, I totally had, like, what I thought this game was completely wrong. So it's actually, like, a team of players rather than, like, one person per country. And so this team is, like, has a bunch of different, I think there's, like, 6 on a team, and they all have different roles, and she happens to be the runner. I don't quite understand the game. And basically, it's, like, you have chasers, and you have blockers, and then you have a runner, and she's the runner. And so the chasers and the blockers are trying to score a point, and once they score something, then a couple bells go off, and she has to run up a mountain, and she has like some little metal thing on her hip that she has to like place in a very specific spot. But there are 3 zones that blockers are at while she's going up the mountain, and she has to defeat a blocker at each of these zones, and then she can throw her little metal thing and win. And so it's a little complex, but it's basically a team. So it's not just she's the one representing Puerto Rico. It just happens to be like the position is runner, which I was correct on when I talked about it last. And it's part of a team. So there's a lot to this world, which is very interesting. I do understand the dragons a little bit more. I was having trouble connecting kind of what this was about. There are these little like sections right here before the beginning of all the chapters, which are interviews with certain people in this book that are important. They bring a little bit of extra world building, I think, and I didn't realize that right away. So the dragons make more sense. I realized that this like sire guy, who's the big bad guy, he was cursed, and that's why he's in human form, and he really wants to be a dragon again. But he's the only one who does that. and what I thought about this government and what I thought was going to be corrupt wasn't. There's a lot of twists and turns. So there's a lot of stuff with this book that I really, really enjoyed. So while I'm reading it, it's like a 4-star experience. But then I put it down, and I have absolutely no desire to pick it back up. Like, if I stopped in the middle of this book, I don't think I would have been impacted one way or the other, which is why I decided to give it a 3.5, because while I was reading it, great, loved it. When I put it down, couldn't be bothered to pick it back up, and I kind of had to force myself to pick it back up because I knew I needed to finish it, and that's where the interestingness lies. Also, the writing I didn't love, which I think I talked about in my last clip where I told you it's kind of written like a contemporary. So it's this fantastical world where there are dragons and all this stuff, but then like they mention all these pop culture references. Like I mentioned, the Obamas were mentioned and Skype was mentioned, and there was something else that was mentioned that was like super relevant, and now I can't remember what it was, but it was something that I was like, wait a second. And every time something like that happened, it really took me out of the story. So while I still really enjoyed this, and I'm so glad I read this, I don't think I'm going to continue with the second one. I'm hesitant. I'm like softy DNFing the series, I think is what I've decided, because there's only one more, but I went on Goodreads and kind of looked up the synopsis, and this ended. I'm very happy with how this ended. I liked all of our characters. Our family issues were talked about. There's some stuff that isn't fully wrapped up, but it was like, this could be a standalone and I could be totally happy. But the sequel follows her and kind of like the mean girl in this group, and I cannot stand her. So first off, I don't think I'm going to want to read it, because you've got her, which is fine, but then this mean girl who turns out to be okay by the end, but still like, I don't love her. And they are in Puerto Rico, and like this other thing, like they kind of like created this new problem for them. So it didn't feel like this problem continuing. It felt like these characters are now in a different place, solving a different problem. So that's why I don't think I'm going to continue, because I feel like this doesn't need any more, you know? So while I still loved this, and I think it was really good, and I liked a lot of the world and a lot of the fantastical game part, like if you are really into like sports stories, this is great because it revolves around this game. And like I said earlier, if you're a contemporary reader who wants to get into fantastical books, this is great because it's set in our world with dragons. So like it's got a few things that I think would help people out. It just didn't fully work for me. But it's still got a 3.5, so like that's pretty freaking good. So I did it. I finished that one. So now I'm halfway done. Well, book-wise, I'm halfway done with my dragon career. So that means the next book that I picked up was Misrule by Heather Walter, which is the second in the Malice trilogy. I am a little over 100 pages. It doesn't look like a lot, but I am flying through this. It is, I can't stop reading it, which is a good feeling because I wasn't so sure about it when I started. I tried to go online to find some synopsises, summaries, spoilery reviews, basically, to remind myself what happened, and I could find almost nothing. I did realize I had like misremembered the main plot, which was, I mean, not misremembered, I mean like Aurora is cursed and she's the last one to be the ruler, and so she needs to have a partner and have true love's first kiss before she turns 21. I said 18, but it was 21, and she's 20. And so Alice is a dark grace, and she teams up, and they try to figure out what's going on, and then it's a romance between them, and then stuff happens at the end of the first book. So I was going into this very hesitant because I was like, oh no, I have forgotten so much, and I can't, because it's been like 2 years, I think, since I read the first book, and I can't remember, like I can't find anything that's going to tell me what this is about. However, I dove right back into this one. I think it's really fascinating because this feels like, even though it's a continuation on from the first book, it felt like a totally different like world because of the events of at the end of the first book. It feels like we're diving into a brand new series. And so me misremembering things or not having remembered certain things is totally fine because they remind me what I need to know, but also do it in a way that feels like, oh, that's some world building, so I don't need to know a whole lot about it. I don't know how to explain it, but basically, like, this feels like a different world than the first book. It feels like a totally different series. It feels like totally different characters. However, where I'm at, stuff is happening. So this is very like, that's what I can describe it as. This reminds me of like Fae Courts in the sense of like the Cruel Prince, the Spiderwick Chronicles, things like that, where these magical creatures are actually really, really grotesque. And evil is not the right word, because they're not evil per se, but they are going about things the wrong way. But like this court that is in this book is, like I said, gruesome. It's got these Vila, which are what our main character is. She's a Vila. You've got the Fae, which are the bad guys. Imps, goblins, demons, shapeshifters, and then like the humans are treated really, really badly. Or not bad, well, yes, badly, but like they're the servants in this world. And it's because of what has happened in the first book with our main character. Anyway, stuff's happening. Things are going down. So I'm definitely invested in this series. I don't know if it's going to be a 5-star. I'm thinking this has very good potential to be a 4-star. But I was really worried diving in, and I don't think I need to be worried, because I literally I read the first 80, 90 pages last night before bed. And like I went through it, and I did have the audiobook, but I was going through it really, really quickly because I had it in front of me and I was physically reading it too. So yeah, it's good. It's good. I'm excited to see where we go. I'm glad I'm picking it up finally, because I almost decided not to pick it up, but we're going to do it. We're going to finish this duology, and I'm excited to see where it goes, because like I said, just now there's 3 different parts in this book, and we just started part 2. And things are happening. So I'm excited to see where this goes. So I'll come back to you probably when I have read more and or finished this book, and then we can see what's next. But I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, which is prioritizing these 2 books, and I'm very excited about it. But I'm wondering if I can use this for my dragon prompt, because this Maleficent person has the ability to create wings and is interpreted by other nations as a dragon. So in my head that counts as like a dragon prompt, but does it count because I need this for my career, but can I also read this for the dragon prompt? Like, can I double up? Because you're not supposed to be able to double up. But I know it's really, you're not supposed to be able to double up within like the careers, and I'm doubling up with a career and something else. I don't know. So I'm thinking this, I'll still not count this as like a dragon book unless I get to the end of the month and I'm struggling and I haven't been able to find a second dragon book. Then we'll do this, because she does kind of transform a little bit. But like I said, she's not really a dragon. She just kind of like creates wings, and people assume she's a dragon because of that. But the word dragon was mentioned. Anyway, those are my rambly thoughts. I'll come back to you when I have more things to say. Hello, it's Monday, but I have some reading updates for you. So I'm here to give you those updates. I've technically finished 2 books since I came to you last. 1 for a career, 1 for the quest. I've started another one. So we have lots of things to talk about. The first one is, as you probably guessed, I finished Misrule by Heather Walter, which is the sequel to, what is it? Malice. I have no idea anymore. This one I ended up giving 4 stars. I really enjoyed this book. It was not what I expected. So I can't remember. I feel like I came to you did I come to you when I started this book or when I was halfway through? I honestly don't remember. I tried to go online and find a bunch of reviews, or not reviews, yeah, well, reviews and synopses for the first book so that I would have an idea of what we were getting into as far as the plot of this one, and make sure I didn't remember or didn't misremember things and all that kind of stuff. The big twist in this one at the very end, I did remember. Well, not twist, but the big plot like thing that happened before the book was over, I did remember, so I wasn't too worried about like that element, those elements of it, but I was worried about any small details that may come back to the story. Didn't have to be though, because if anything, like, this felt like the beginning of a new story. Like, this almost felt like a standalone. I don't know how to explain it. I feel like you didn't actually need to know what happened in the first book. I mean, you did, because it set it up, this entire thing, but like, I'm not making a lot of sense right now. I feel like the first book set up one thing, this book took it in a totally different direction, and it felt like the start of a new series, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So while I really enjoyed this, and it's just really hard to talk about, like I said, because the whole premise of this book is all based on the final chapter or two at the end of the first book. I think there might be some things from the first book that become important near the end of this book, and those didn't click with me, but it definitely, if you like Faye, even though Faye is the villain in the story, this might be a series for you. It's like I said, a sapphic retelling of Sleeping Beauty, but it is like the first one is very much the sapphic retelling, and this one is like the events after. So I liked it. Like I said, I gave it 4 stars. The ending was very like, I have like conflicting feelings about the ending, because like I loved it in the sense of it was very picture perfect. It wrapped up exactly the way I thought it might, and then at the very last second it threw a twist in the works, and then it wrapped up in a very different way, and I was like, that's not what I expected. So yes, it had like a perfect little bow, and it wrapped up rather quickly, but it wrapped up in a way that I didn't expect, and I enjoyed that part. So I really liked it. I'm glad that I read it. I don't remember what this was in for prompt. Oh, I still have my bookmark. It's for incantations and spells. So I've officially finished that. It was required for my career. I don't think I'm going to hold on to this one. I think this duology is probably going to get unhauled and given to my used bookstore so somebody else can enjoy it more than I can, because they're just really big books and I don't see myself reading them again. But I'm really glad that I read this. Like, this was well done, and it kept me on my toes, and I was invested the whole way through. So it's pretty good. I was really happy with how that went. And then I ended up picking up and finishing in the last couple of days Wish Tree by Catherine Applegate, which I haven't mentioned once in this video, but if you saw my TBR, this is the book that my best friend picked for me, because I got best friend pick from my TBR basket. She really enjoys this. It's a middle grade story about a neighborhood from the perspective of a tree, which I genuinely loved. One of the quest prompts is to read a book with a tree on the cover in the title, and this one has both. So I decided that I would mention this one here because I did finish it. Like I said, it's for the quest, so it's not for something that's required, but it's super short. It's got beautiful illustrations all throughout this book. There's even like full page ones, so I can find one like this one here. And it's got 50 chapters in this, and I did listen to this on audio while I was reading along. So I would recommend, if this book, when I start talking about it, if it sounds interesting to you, to read it physically, because there's all those beautiful illustrations, and I think this is a beautiful way to present the story. This story basically, like I said, takes place in a neighborhood, and it's the perspective of this tree called Red. It's a red oak. And so in this tree, there is birds and all these like little creatures that live in the tree. And the tree has been there for centuries. And this starts with, basically, there's these 2 kids who live next to each other. One of them's called Stephen, one of them's called Samir, and this tree is a wishing tree. So once a year, people from all over the community come write their wishes on pieces of paper or cloth or something, and they tie it to the branches of this tree. And the owner of this tree, after a few days, will take those wishes down, but it's everyone's way of kind of putting up their wishes. And so Samir has recently moved in to this neighborhood, and she does not feel welcome. People have started leaving things around the tree to show that she is not welcome and her family is not welcome. One thing that is mentioned here is that they are a Muslim family. So that's the whole thing. And so she takes this little piece of paper and writes, "I wish to make a friend," and ties it to this tree. And so this tree, along with all the critters in it, are trying to do everything they can to help out this little kid, because the tree feels like its time on this earth is ending and it's going to get chopped down real soon. So I loved this. I thought the story was beautiful. It has this very whimsical and childlike way of looking at it. It is a middle grade, like I mentioned, so it's meant for much younger readers. But the tree looks at the world in a very childlike way, but with lots of knowledge. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, this tree has been around for centuries, so it has so much knowledge and so much wisdom that it likes to impart on people. It will impart on the animals that are around it, but at the same time, it's presented in a very childlike way. So that was really fun to see. It was really fun to see the characters in this book, like Samir and Steven, like I mentioned, kind of come together, if you will. And I wasn't quite sure what we were getting into, because a lot of this book starts with Red just explaining what's happening, like why this tree can talk to animals but it shouldn't talk to humans. And there's some very interesting conversations in here. There's also some like biology that the tree presents. So like, especially at the beginning, when the tree is talking about all of the animals in its branches and in its hollows, and how it's called, why it's called red, because it's a red oak, and all the other trees and what their names are. But then they also throw in some science. So you see like a lot of biology and stuff presented in a way that's really easily digestible. So it's educational as well as fun. And then of course it was just very heartwarming seeing this community come together. And it's like, there's a few things at the end of this book that I didn't really know where we were going with this. I thought I had a very clear idea of where this book was going to end, and it didn't end that way. It ended in a very, like, I think I even had a moment where I stopped and I was like, I'm sorry, wait, what? And it's not what I expected from this really tiny middle grade. So I loved it. I thought it was adorable. Read that for a quest. So I finished those two books today. No, I finished Misrule over the weekend, and I finished Wish Tree today. So that means I need to pick up another one, which I actually have. I have started another book, which I've been toying. There's two books that I am going back and forth on whether or not I wanted to start them, but this one was required for my career. And even though the two books that I wanted to read when I was going into this week, I've done, only one of them was for my career. So I figured I'd go with the one that was required for my career. And I'm going with Twice in a Blue Moon by Christina Lauren. So this one is in for the prompt of shapeshifting. This prompt is the whole, like, you find your most recent 5-star, someone who blurbed that, you read one of their books. I talk about it in my TBR video, but I kind of had to go back. It's been quite a while since I had a 5-star. And I could change this up because I did read Happy Place earlier this month and really enjoyed it. And that was my first 5-star in a couple of months. But I decided to continue with the, one that I had picked from previously before April started. So you go back a couple, and the one that I think we ended up with was Love Theoretically, which was blurbed by Christina Lauren. So I originally had Beautiful Stranger in for this one, but one of the prompts for my quest is to have a moon on the cover or in the title, and this audiobook was available at my library, so I decided to switch up the prompt, keep the same author, but switch up the book that I'm choosing for them. So I'm going with Twice in a Blue Moon. That was a long story, but basically, this one follows our two main characters, Sam and Tate. It is a second chance romance of sorts. I don't know a lot. I'm only about a chapter in, so these are very long chapters, by the way. Like, I'm almost done. Actually, I lied. I'm almost done with chapter 2. So I'm on page 42. I've just kind of put it on while I was doing some housekeeping today. So I've just started this. I don't have a lot of thoughts quite yet. This book follows our main two characters, Sam and Tate, who meet when they are super young. It's 14 years. The book starts 14 years ago, and then it goes back to the present. So Tate has just graduated from high school and is about to go off to college, and Sam has just turned 21. And they end up meeting up due to them both being American, I guess, and connecting in London when she's visiting it, and she is the daughter of one of the world's biggest film stars, but she's kept her identity kind of on the down low, and she feels like she can trust Sam, so she ends up telling him. And it says here on the back, so when it becomes clear her trust is misplaced, her world shatters for good. So I don't know what's going to happen, where she's going to find out that her trust has been misplaced, but something's going to happen between the two of them. And then it jumps to the present, where she is an up-and-coming actress, and she starts a new job on set, and Sam is there. I don't know what Sam does, but Sam's on the set, and so it's the two of them kind of reconnecting, and I'm sure talking about the past and what happened, and I'm sure there's some miscommunication going on, and what she thinks actually happened didn't actually happen, all that fun stuff. But it's Christina Lauren. It's one of their, I want to say, earlier books, although it did come out in like 2019. That's what I was thinking, 2019. So it's one of their earlier books as far as what I've got on my shelf here, but I definitely have, this is one of the, how do I explain this? I love Christina Lauren. I want to read everything they have written. This is one of the ones that is lower on my TBR, but we're going to make it work. I'm very excited to see what this is about. It's definitely going to give me some of that Hollywood stardom vibes, and we'll see how I feel about this romance. But this is the one I'm starting today. I would love to finish it before this vlog is over, but we'll see. But it is required for one of my careers. Like I said, it's for shapeshifting, which is required. So I'll come back to you probably with thoughts on this and to wrap up this vlog, because who knows how much reading I'm actually going to get done. Although I still have some like housekeeping, spring cleaning. It's spring cleaning time. So we have a lot of stuff to go through in this house because we've just been hoarding stuff forever. And so I can do that with an audiobook in. So maybe I will get a lot done. I don't know. We'll see. But that's where my brain is at. That's where my reading has come to since the weekend. I've finished two more things. So yay. Hello. I'm here to wrap up this vlog because I have finished Twice in a Blue Moon by Christina Lauren. Literally like a minute ago. So I came here to kind of give you thoughts on this. I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars. It's not my favorite Christina Lauren book I've ever read, but it's definitely up there. It definitely did some things that I didn't expect, like the way that I had very specific opinions, or so I thought, about what the twist was gonna be as to like why, like what happened 14 years ago as to why they stopped talking, like whatever he did to her. I had like ideas of what it was, and then I had ideas of what I thought there was going to be a twist revolving that, and then there wasn't. So I was all kinds of wrong on that. And then there was another twist at the end that I didn't really see coming, but I kind of saw coming. So like there's a few things about this book, but I really enjoyed it. The swooniness, the chemistry between our characters is beautiful. I did find out that the Sam character is the one who wrote the screenplay that Tate is acting in the present day. And this is the first show that first movie that she's done with her dad. So she's the main character in it, and her dad is playing the dad character. So it's very like a bit part for him, but it's like a big deal with publicity. The two of them are doing a movie together, and it's like a whole thing. And so I liked that. The dad's a jerk, but we kind of expected that based on the history with him. And I can't stand him as a person, but he made a very good antagonist in this story because, you know, at first I was like, this guy's awful. And then there were moments where I was like, you know what? He might be turning around. And then he would do something and I'm like, oh, well, just kidding. Forget that. I did it. I finished it. 4 stars. Yay. So I don't have a lot to say about that because it's very much like, it's a romance book. I loved all the chemistry. I loved all like the feelings I got with the characters, but there's not a whole lot of, I guess, stuff going on with that one. Although I will say one thing that I didn't expect with this is that the movie that they are doing in this book is based on Sam's life a little bit. So his grandmother was white and his grandfather was black, and so he tells the story of them growing up in this little town and how people did not really accept the fact that there was a black man in this town, let alone one that was with a white woman. And so like that's a conversation within this story. And then also because the movie is based on it, her co-star is black, and he talks about how important this is for him to show and like be in a movie like this. So there's a lot of conversation about that. It's not like a big part of the story. Obviously the biggest part is the romance, but it's a very interesting conversation that I didn't expect to see, and it was very refreshing. I really liked it. I love how they can like make me fall in love with the characters, and they've written so like 25 plus books, and every time I'm like, oh, this is going to be similar to blah 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 blah. And it's not, it's a brand new thing. How do these authors do it? I don't know, but they're geniuses. So, those are my faults. That's kind of my thoughts. So, that's what I've done this week. I've read 4 books, and 2 of them were required for my career. And 2 were ones that I was like really wanting to get to as far as like priority reads. So, I would say this was a very successful week. So, we started off the week with Blaze Wrath Games by Empire Ortiz, which was for one of my dragon licensing prompts, which was to include a dragon, and I gave this one 3.5 stars. Then we had Misrule, a second in the Malice series by Heather Walter, which I gave 4 stars. This was for the prompt of Spells and Incantation, which was required. I had finished Wish Tree as well by Catherine Applegate, which I gave 4 stars, and this was for one of the quest prompts, which was to have a tree on the cover or in the title. And then, of course, Twice in a Blue Moon by Christina Lauren, which was for 2 things. It was for a quest prompt, which was to have a moon in the title or on the cover. Somehow I was able to do both, but also for the shape-shifting prompt. Pretty successful, I would say. I'm still on my track to read 2 required readings a week. I'm very excited about that. So that's how my second week of the readathon went. I think I'm doing pretty good. I've got a good chunk of what I need to get done. I'm on the right track to finish what I need to by the end of the month, which is very exciting. So I hope you guys enjoyed this vlog. As always, please let me know all of your thoughts down below. If you're participating in the Magical Readathon, how did your second week go? How are you doing on your careers? Are you completing some stuff? What are some of your favorite reads so far this month? Tell me all of your thoughts down below. But if you like this video, and I very much hope that you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe it down below if you'd like to be part of this awesome growing family. I've also got all my social media down there, as well as other fun bookish links, so go check all that out. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!